Welcome, and thank you for participating in this important training module covering the privacy of student records. Please make sure to review and complete the entire program so that our records will reflect that you have completed your training. We have made some changes to the content and cycle of required training for new and existing employees. New employees will take 3 training modules. Every 2 years, existing full-time employees will take 2 training modules. If you are an existing employee who deals with student records, you will also take the FERPA training every 2 years. Generally, these are employees who have access to Cardinal students. This module deals with the protection of student record information. The Catholic University of America is legally and ethically obligated to protect the confidentiality of student records. Our legal obligation arises under the Family Rights and Privacy Act, also known as FERPA. We'll cover the Act and how it applies to you. We'll help you to be able to identify what student information is sensitive and protected, and we'll give you some examples of disclosure of information that may violate FERPA. The goal of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act is to protect a student's privacy and the content of his or her education records. And students have several rights under FERPA: to inspect and review their records, to correct a record, to limit disclosure of personally identifiable information, information that includes direct identifiers such as a student's name or identification number, indirect identifiers such as a student's date of birth, or other information that can be used to distinguish or trace an individual's identity, either directly or indirectly through linkages with other information. Students whose information is unlawfully disclosed can file a complaint with the Department of Education. In the course of your daily activities, you may have access to or come into contact with student information. Your responsibility to protect the confidentiality of this information is governed by federal law and the policies of the university. You can only access and view this information if it is related to your job duties. And student records continue to be protected after a student leaves the university. Any record directly related to a student and maintained by the university is an education record. This includes transcripts, enrollment records, exams, grades, and disciplinary files in any format: electronic, hard copy, handwritten notes, and videos. A Zoom recording of a class may be subject to privacy laws if it relates directly to a student. For example, a class that focused on a student's presentation. Video of a routine class session where the focus is not on a specific student is not an education record. Education records cannot be disclosed without the student's consent, even if the requester is a parent or a spouse. What if a school official makes the request? You may release a student's education information to another school official without the student's consent if there is a legitimate educational interest. Certain records are not considered education records. Records created by our campus police officers are not education records, even if they relate to a student. Once students leave the university, records created after that event, like alumni records, are not education records. Notes created by an advisor for his or her personal use are not education records if they are not shared with others. Medical records used to document the need for accommodations are not education records, nor are student employment records unless the employment is due to student status, for example, work-study. You are permitted to disclose certain information about a student. This is referred to as directory information. This is information that would not generally be considered harmful or an invasion of privacy if released, and it can be disclosed without a student's consent. Directory information includes name and addresses, email addresses, dates of attendance, and the other categories of information listed here. Be careful though, a student can ask that this directory information not be disclosed. They will have to make this request in writing on a non-disclosure form, and if they have done so, their directory information cannot be disclosed. So, how do you know if a student has requested that directory information not be disclosed? If a student has completed a non-disclosure form, you will see a blue window shade icon in Cardinal Students. This acts as a prompt not to disclose information about that student. The red star means a student may have consented to the release of certain information. Select the red star and then look for the REL indicator. And clicking on that hyperlink will tell you who the student has authorized release of their information to and what types of information they are allowing to be released. Certain actions will violate FERPA, and here are some examples. Emails containing education records to students other than the student to whom the record belongs. So for example, sending an email to a group of students who are in danger of failing a class. Students now know of other students who are failing, and this is impermissible. A coach who tells other players that the quarterback can't play due to poor grades. Don't leave graded tests in a stack for students to pick up. Don't mention the grades or exam results of a student in front of other students. Don't discuss a student's education information with a parent or their spouse, and never use social security numbers on attendance sheets. What if it's an emergency? Disclosure of a student's education records can be made to address a health or safety emergency to an appropriate person. To law enforcement, trained medical personnel, parents, people whose knowledge is necessary to protect the health or safety of the student or other persons. Time for a pop quiz. Can a faculty member share a Zoom class recording with third parties? We've talked a little bit about this earlier in the presentation, and as you know, it depends. Video of a routine class session where the focus is not on a specific student is not an education record. However, if the class session focused on a student's presentation, it's directly related to that student and cannot be released. Someone calls and asks you for a student's major, date of attendance, and class schedule. Can you release this information? You cannot release the student's class schedule. That is a protected record, but you are free to release the other information, as it is directory information. True or false? Once a student graduates, their student records are no longer protected and can be released. That, of course, is false. Student records remain protected even after graduation. Your participation in this training module operates as an acknowledgement by you to abide by the requirements of FERPA and our university policies, and to protect the privacy of student information. Thank you for your time and participation in this training module.